Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Fired Up Friday with Dee and Tiff. And hopefully, before it is all over, we're going to have Myron Clifton join us too. We'd love to have him in the conversation. It's our first time getting a third person in, so we're going to, see how that goes. If he comes in later, we'll grab him and bring him into the conversation. We always love talking to Myron. But Tiff and I, of course, always have a lot on our mind and a lot to share. So, Tiff, I am going to let you go first.
Where should we start, Miss D? I mean, there's so much that has happened in the last 2 weeks and just this week alone.
I know.
So I don't even know where to begin because let's start with Elon because that was interesting. Did you see the reports that came out this morning about how he was on drugs the entire time? Somebody is selling all of his business to the New York
What?
Times about his drug use while he was on ketamine and all. He had a suitcase full of drugs. And so he pissed somebody off, which a lot of
A
people think that
suitcase,
if
you say?
yeah, a lot of people, Stephen Miller, his wife, left the
I
White
saw
House
that.
and she went to go work with Elon. So there's all these rumors about their relationship, which I don't even want to feed into. But if it's true, that would make sense why someone is leaking all of this information now. And
It
it's
absolutely would.
and it's like very juicy, and I'm like, ooh, they had like love triangles in the White House apparently. I
It,
don't, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me because these people, they project that they are so holier than thou, religious, and we all know that they're all cheaters and they're all like scumbags. So it would fit perfectly because Corey Lewandowski was supposedly had an affair with Christy Nome, and he
right.
actually, according to reporting, he actually works with her at the Department of Homeland Security. So these people are like all just doing each other, and it's just so weird.
It really is. And, speaking of Elon, because he's unfortunately on my mind a lot because, like, I know, people are like glad he's leaving and going, but his influence, he served his purpose there. But he's still, what he did will still stand because Voight is stepping in to take his place. And of course, he was one of the authors of Project 2025 and, holds a position there in the Heritage Foundation. But beyond that, like, Elon isn't stopping his crazy on us because, for one, I live in Tennessee and he has his AI company headquartered here in Memphis. And there's a lot of crap going on. So it's going to be interesting to see how Stephen Miller's wife plays into all of this. I wonder, which company she's going to be maybe
Right.
working with him. And also, I have been really working on a couple of stories. One, the havoc that he is um, wreaking here in Tennessee, in Memphis in particular. Like, he is polluting the air. People can't go outside of their
Oh my
house
God.
there because of him and those turbines that he's using to power Grok. Like, first of all, they did this kind of like in the dark of night. They made people at the utility companies and other places sign NDAs. And they didn't even get a permit for the turbines that they have. And they're already exceeding the levels that are authorized. And so there's a lot of mess going on here in Tennessee, in Memphis in particular, around Elon and what he's doing. And he and his representatives are saying, well, the regulations say you have up into a year, basically, to get permitted. So they are skirting and using loopholes to already run like 35 of these turbines, and each one of them are, putting off more pollution than the EPA allows. So this is also why he is such a fan of no regulations
Yeah,
because he
that makes
doesn't
sense.
want to have to adhere to any of them in any of his businesses. And then the other thing too, and this isn't just him, this is all the technocrats. They are also still working on their fantasy freedom cities. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, but these people, I'm trying to bring more light to it, but I don't know if you remember when Trump was on the campaign trail, he talked about freedom cities and using federal land for them.
I remember
So
the
they
federal land part. Yeah.
Yes, so they're selling off our federal land for these freedom cities. And these freedom cities are for people like Elon and other, like Peter Thiel and other kind of technocrat, folks, so that they can build these utopian type cities. Think Jetsons, okay? They literally are talking about flying cars and stuff. And it's really, like I said, it's no joke. And there's a lot of documentation. I'm digging into it, but people need to be aware, like when they're not doing, direct harm by, taking programs and grants and things away, they're
Sure thing.
planning other crap that is going to affect us, and of course, on these federal lands and things like this, they again are ignoring regulations or whatever. So they really are just trying to just burn America down, as far as I'm concerned. It's a mess. So I'm so glad that all of you guys joined us here today. And yeah, I think that's some juicy stuff going on with him. Uh,
Yeah, I was sorry. I hadn't had to. I sent Myron the link, so hopefully
okay.
he'll be able to join. He said, did I get it in email? No, you have to go in the app.
Okay, good, good, good.
So
Great.
I sent him the link. So once we see him pop up, hopefully you can just add him as a co-host.
Okay, yeah, I'll be looking for
Yeah.
him. So,
Yeah. So listen, the whole Elon, I know he's not going to be gone. I wonder if he's still going to have like a bedroom at the White House now, or if he's like actually like kind of excommunicate. I did see an interview though. I know he's not going to be gone. I wonder if he's
sorry.
still going to have. Oh, it's okay.
That was me. I accidentally hit
You did
my
it.
computer.
I'm like, I hear myself. No, I was watching. I want to say it was like Lawrence or Ari. It was one of the guys on. Oh, actually, I think it was Chris Hayes. I was watching last night, and he was showing a clip of Elon, and he was saying that he actually didn't agree with Trump on a lot of the things that Trump was doing, and I was like, oh, why are you doing that? Like, what is the reason that you don't agree with him? I would like you to elaborate. He's like, the people in the White House don't like that. I don't like some of the things that they're doing. I'm like, I would like to know what the things that they're doing that he doesn't like. You know what I mean? Like, what is it? What is it that Trump is doing? Obviously, he's getting a tax break. I mean, he's going to get an extremely large tax break and he's getting contracts. So what is it that he doesn't like that the administration is doing? Has he found empathy and he doesn't like the fact that, they're going to harm people? Like, I mean, he had no problem harming people to lose their jobs with Doge. So I mean, the drug use kind of makes sense because he's all over the damn place. Like, I mean, he really is all over the place.
I saw that, and I was thinking the same thing as you. Is like, what's your problem with them? Because they really have helped you out, dude. They're still helping you out because, like I said, when you leave, the no regulations and deregulation that you have started is going to continue, and you are going to benefit from that. So, like you said, the drug use makes sense because he is all over the place. And I just feel like with them, he's getting a lot of flack. I saw a story, but I haven't seen much more about it since, so I'm gonna
Okay.
look at that. They were considering taking him out of the CEO position at Tesla. I don't know if that's changed because that was maybe a couple of
Wow.
weeks ago.
Yeah, that
So
was a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, I think that was also discussed by Chris too. He's like, the stockholders are upset with what has happened. I mean, I will give props to the people who were protesting. I wasn't one of them, but these people that went and protested at Tesla, and not the people that were burning cars, because I don't agree with that. But the
Right.
people that were actually showing up weekend after weekend in front of Tesla dealerships and protesting about what he was doing. I mean, people in DC, there's one in DC, and they were having, I mean, they were sitting out there dancing. I mean, there was but they were still showing up, right? So if you're gonna protest, then this is an effective way to protest because you actually impacted their sales, like we're doing with like many of us are doing with Target, and that's what companies care about. Their corporations care about their stop Dallas, their bottom line. Like that is what they care about. So if they're losing money, then they're gonna have to have some changes. And Elon, as he's not stupid, he sounds stupid most of the time, but he's not stupid, and he knows that he's beholden to these shareholders. He's maybe the CEO or he runs president, whatever title he has. But at the end of the day, these are corporations, and he has to answer to the stockholders. So it's kind of an interesting thing to see where we've come from, him being on stage jumping around as
With
Tim
this
Walz
chainsaw.
called him a dipshit, you know what I mean? And then we went to Cheesehead, to then him being involved in elections, to him then, you know, just making a total disaster of Doge and firing all these people, the chainsaw, to now he's stepping away and it's sounding kind of sympathetic and kind of like he has some kind of regrets for what he's done. But you knew this going into this. You knew that this is what was going to happen. And his evolution from being somewhat a Democrat to then being involved with these Republicans, and was the bottom line for him the money, or was he just like a drug, like a drug, I don't, what I think
Drug
Martin,
fueled fit.
yeah, drug
Yeah.
fueled, yeah, exactly. Like exactly. That's exactly what I mean. But it's just kind of crazy to see how this is all, played out, and it's really disturbing. And I don't even know where to go from here. So we will see what happens. But the Stephen Miller thing really cracks me up. I'm watching that because there's going to be. It seems like someone has a vendetta out for him, and they're going to tell all his business. And we already know he has like five baby mama and
So
lots of baby
there's
mama
lots of
drama.
drama there.
Lots of baby mama drama. So yeah,
Exactly.
it's going to be very. It's just something to watch go as we go forward. The other
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think. The other thing, of course, the other thing that happened this week, and mostly last week, was the one big beautiful bill.
Yeah, that big billionaire bill. Like, I just cannot bring myself to call it. That's crazy. And I think it's crazy that they named it that. So people would have to keep, referring to it in that way. And I just refuse to, because that is a billionaire bailout, basically. That's a bill that's going to help, billionaires. Speaking of which, interesting, that bill, this is where we as Democrats have got to get smart and get our strategy together, because with that bill we know that it's going to harm people, like even some of their own constituents. But I talked about this in my pod this week. They're really smart at really reframing and changing the narrative, like
Absolutely.
just straight out lying. And I'm gonna tell you,
Z,
like,
before you move on, I think Myron is on. I think he said he was here, so I don't know if you can
okay, let me
if you
see.
can invite him.
Okay, let me see if I can do that. Yep, got him. Yay! Shows we're waiting for him.
Okay.
Yes, guys, we have a third guest here today, Myron Clifton. We're so excited about having him in the conversation with us today.
Gotta work through this technology.
Exactly. We're still new here at Substack, and we're figuring out all the tools, but we're liking what we find. We love the features. We're just getting familiar with, how to work them.
All right. Yeah, I didn't want to start unless he was here to talk about the bill. And we've had, I think we talked about this on our podcast with I had joined Kenny and and Zach on theirs, and we were
Yes,
trying
I
to
caught
decide
a
like,
couple of clips.
yeah, what was the right name to call the bill? So is it, I call it the beautiful trash bill or trash ass bill. Kenny and them called it the big beautiful bullshit bill. So I like, why can't we have like one specific name to call it?
Yeah,
But I don't think that we have come to the conclusion on a specific name of this
yeah,
bill, other than it's horrible.
exactly. But we definitely should not be calling it a big beautiful bill. Like I said, I kind of like the big billionaire bill.
Yeah, that
'Cause-
one works too. Hey, Myron, Dee sent you a link. I mean, she sent you an invite to co-host. So you should have that. If you have it, then you just click on it and then you should be able to join. I see you in the comments.
okay, awesome. Thanks, Tiff, because my vision and my space I'm working with here is okay. And he can see. Let us know if you're having a problem, Myron, because right now I'm just showing that we're waiting for him. So
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, the bill is horrible. I know you were going to talk about your podcast and what you were talking about on there with in regards to the bill, because it is absolutely a horrific bill. But like you said, they tried to spin, they tried to spin how they are framing the bill so that people can think it's not going to add to the deficit, or it is going to do only positive things and not negative things. But we know that's not true. We can see it for what it is. We can read. We actually do read. Unlike the congressman who said he didn't even read the bill, which was insane.
exactly,
How
I think we should.
embarrassing was that?
Yes, I think we should start keeping a list because I saw a little clip, but I haven't found any more justification that Comer didn't read it either. So this is what I'm talking about, and what I'm referring to, because we'll keep waiting on Myron, and Myron, let us know if you're having difficulties in the comments or whatever, just maybe connection glitches. But I think it was maybe Tuesday. Yes, it was Tuesday morning. I was, unpacking boxes and trying to sort through this move, and I had the TV on in the background, just kind of white noise, and on our local stations, and a commercial came on, and I stopped dead in my tracks because literally this commercial was talking about Democrats taking Medicare away from people.
Wow.
Yes, while they are pushing this bill through, they are literally running commercials blaming Democrats. And then they have this language. You guys need to look this up because this is the language that they're going to be using trying to put the things that they have done on the Democrats. And they're still dragging President Biden. They are telling their constituents in this commercial that we're protecting you from the Biden pill penalty. Yeah,
Wow.
yes,
Wow.
claiming like this man, put together legislation to cut the cost of medication, and they are literally blaming him for people's rising costs, and they're saying what that the Biden pill penalty is when you look it up, and in their way of explaining it. Again, they're siding with the billionaires because what they're doing is they're saying that by him negotiating these prices, that it is stopping innovation of the businesses. So again, the billionaires can't develop more medicine and things because President Biden decide to get cost savings for the people. Like they're good at this. They're really good
Yeah,
at
no,
lying.
they're great at messaging. We are like so subpar when it comes to influencing messaging, and they lie. They lie with no. They don't care. What do they have to lose? I mean, they will lie with a straight face and don't care.
They
We,
just make up narratives out of whole cloth and
yeah,
proudly.
and don't care. They're like, okay, yeah, we like Mike Johnson is literally on is doing an interview and he's like, yeah, this is not going to add to the deficit, and everybody's in the room like, what do you mean this is not going to add to, like, we do math, we understand how math, he's like trying to spin it and make it what it's what the deficit is going to be raised. We do not take in enough revenue to match the spending. That is a deficit. That's the whole point. And you're going to spend billions of dollars per year on these programs and to give tax cuts to the rich. Like, how does this square when people are losing their benefits? My thing with this is what I hate about what they're doing is that they're going to harm people with the Medicaid cuts and they're going to harm people with the SNAP cuts. But here's the thing that I don't think most people realize. Those Medicaid and SNAP cuts won't go into effect until 2027. So they're going to look like, oh, we got away with this, but yet people are going to get tax, they're going to get an increase in their standard deduction. They're going to be able to get, the no tax on tips thing, the no tax on overtime, increase in the child tax credit. So everything's going to look great on paper, but the feelings and the harm is not going to come until people start getting kicked off their plans or their copays start being raised, because one of the things that the bill does is that it increases copays if you are at a certain level of poverty. And so if you actually are somebody who makes, I think it's like 125% over the poverty limit, right now you may pay no copays, but now with this bill, you may end up paying $30, $40 to go to the doctor. That is going to eat into your cost. That's your cost of living. You have to actually put that into how you go to the doctor. Now you're going to have to pay. So these kinds of things will impact people immediately as this bill starts to kick in. But I don't know. It's just frustrating that people don't take the time to read the bill. And I get it. People have jobs and they have a lot going on, so they don't necessarily have time to understand what's going on. And you try to give people information about the bill, but until they actually feel the impacts won't matter to them because it's an individualized kind of thing.
It is, and I think that they know that in part. No, I think that they do know that. So that's kind of why they operate the way they do, because they can keep spinning this narrative and continuing to spin it. Like, think about it. Like, we're what, 16, 18, 16 months away from the next, from midterm elections, but they're
Right.
already running commercials like this because they know that Democrats are going to be talking about this and using this in the midterm elections. So they're already spinning a narrative that blames Democrats, and so Democrats are going to have to get really smart. First of all, they're going to have to be aware of how they're doing this and come up with a way to counter that narrative, and not just kind of, he said she said kind of thing, but creating, their own narratives around how they, are helping people, the things that they have done to help people. Like, they need to brag more. Like, President Biden talked about not, doing all these things, and but really not bragging about it, because I think that they expected people to recognize just individually, and I think that they still think that the media will report these things as they are. But alas, we need to understand that the media is not our friend. They're certainly not the
They
Democrat
definitely
friend.
aren't. No, there's
They
and there's no liberal media. I think that is such a misnomer. There's no liberal media. These people spend more time on, if you watch MSNBC, they spend a lot of time talking negatively about Democrats. I mean, look, we're at what, 3 weeks of the Jake Tapper book. I mean, like, when is it going to end? I mean, we started that the last time we spoke, it was still going on. It's still going on now. And what we found out today is Jake Tapper's ratings are in the tank. I mean, his numbers are in the tank. His book is not performing as well as he would have hoped. It is still a New York Times bestseller list, but it is not producing the numbers that they thought they would get. So I think they said that his book is about 52,000 that he sold compared to other books that have sold millions in the first week or so. So it's kind of interesting to see how You've gone on all these shows, you've been talking about Biden, you've made this case for why Biden was, you know, he was he was in cognitive decline. He had, you know, it was a whole cover up in the White House, and now karma's coming back to you. You're like, what are we doing?
Exactly. And here's the other thing is that, like, he's trashing Dems and Biden. Um, and the Republicans are using that ammunition basically to trash Dems and also trashing him because, they're saying that, like, you knew this stuff
Right,
before.
right.
So
Oh,
why
they're
didn't
going
you?
in on him.
So he's getting it from all sides, and I'm like, is it worth it, Jake? Was it really worth it? Like, and now he's trying to claim, because he's getting this from both sides, that it's all about the money for him. And he had some lame. No, people don't write books for money. Are you crazy? Like, I mean, that may
Yeah,
not be
who
their
doesn't? I
sole
mean,
motivation, but
let's just put it like this: there's a book. If the goal is not about money, then why is CNN.com having ads at the top? Like, I went to go look at an article yesterday, and at the very top of it, you see CNN promoting this book. Talking about, I screenshot it because I was like, yeah, no, this is about money. This is a grift. You want to make money off of this book. It's not about, you're stop trying to act self-righteous. Like, you were part of, like, you were so, yes, I was part of the cover up. I should have known better. And then you're using MAGA talking points and saying, oh well, MAGA, was right all along. He's like, Laura Ingraham, you were right all along. And I
what?
shouldn't have, yes, this is the whole evolution of Jake Tapper. He is like, now he's like talking about lawfare. Do you know about lawfare? Like he's
That
talking
is
about law.
definitely
Like, he is
Republican
yeah,
lingo.
he is using Republican language. Then there was the whole thing about his son that he came out with last week, and I had to go find that clip of the podcast. He was like, I was on a left leaning podcast, and it seems like Democrats, and he's like Democrats aren't able to have conversations, and they're not talking to people like my 15-year-old son. I'm sorry, sir, but why is a political party even talking to your son, or needs to have language that relates to your 15-year-old son? That is a parent's job to me. When I was young, my parents didn't, they talk about politics. You know what I mean? Like, that was something that was talked about in our house. In my house, we talk about politics. We typically get our politics from our parents. We don't get it from video games or wherever. Where would we be in circles that people are talking about politics other than within our own family structure? I mean, I don't understand why he would think that Democrats would need to talk the language of a 15-year-old. Like, that just didn't make any sense to me, and I was pretty pissed off when I saw it. Like, you're putting, and not to mention the two guys that he was on the podcast with, both of those guys are not some people. This is not a political podcast. This is like more of a comedian bro style podcast where they have jokes and they talk. Like, they were joking to him in the beginning. They were joking with him about his dog. You know what I mean? Like, they were like, oh, do you walk your dog? Like, they're like, he's like, yeah. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe a guy from CNN is walking his dog and having to pick up crap. You know what I mean? Like, this is the kind of podcast he's on. This is not a political podcast where they just, and he was the one who brought up his son in this podcast. He was the one that started the conversation about his son and saying that his son wanted to be a cop. I don't have a problem with you if you're. They were like, your son wants to be a cop. Like, it stunned them that he said that, and he was like, yeah, my son likes, World War II stuff, and he likes him. He thinks cops are cool, and they're like, okay, but what does he think about, like marginalized people? Like, they started asking questions, and that offended him. But what do you think people are going to? I mean, these are two young guys. They're not older guys. They're two guys in their 20s, and they asked a question because they wanted to understand. And they were doing it in a joking way, but he took it as that was representative of the Democratic Party. Well, how are two guys who have a podcast that don't talk about politics? There is nothing that shows. I look, I'm always going to research something. There's
Exactly.
nothing that shows that these guys are even Democrats. For all we know, they don't even vote. So why are people linking the Democratic Party with people who are not necessarily even affiliated with the Democratic Party. And just because they are not right wingers or they're not in MAGA land does not, because I feel like we're in a space where it's like MAGA and then everyone else who disagrees with them or not in agreement with them is the left, the left, the left, the left. But the
Exactly.
left doesn't always include people who are Democrats. We have leftists who are way out there who don't even vote, who I don't even see as part of the Democratic Party. They are way far, which would include a lot of the people who protest for Palestine, and they don't care about the Demo. They hate the Democratic Party. They protested Kamala nonstop, Biden nonstop. They even created an uncommitted movement. They had a whole abandoned Kamala campaign. These people are not Democrats. They're not. They're just not. So why are you linking these people with us? And that is the part that bothers me about the rhetoric and the conversation about this, because people like Jake Tapper, and then yesterday we had Chuck Todd with his mess that he was talking, which was
They pulled him out of the
crazy.
closet again.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
But
he was on a
let me
he was
just
on a
say
podcast.
something
Go ahead.
on the Jake Tapper thing and bringing up his son. I feel like this is him already stirring a narrative that is being stirred, that I know that posted about, and that has bothered me, and it's kind of that David Hogg thing, like, you're not talking to white men.
Hmm?
That's why he
Oh
brought his
boy.
son up, because that's what's in his head, and that's
Right.
the narrative that he's going to help continue to spin. I see this narrative, spinning up more and more, like, telling Dems they failed this demographic. They're, too into identity politics, which I think is a lie, as well. And I just, like, we can get into that, but that's why I feel like he brought that up, because that's in his head and that's what they do. And agree with you in that I hate seeing how the media and people in general frame people who, if they're not, as you say, in MAGA land, they have to be liberal, and they have to be part of the Democratic Party. And even though some of them may vote Democrat, they are not all the same. And putting us all in that
Yeah.
same bucket is is not good, and it's not doing voters justice.
It's
First
not.
of
And
all, it's a
yeah,
lie.
it's a lie. And then you have people like Rahm Emanuel that are like saying that the Democratic Party is too woke. Like I feel like white men are not doing Democrats a service right now. They're harming. They want to come out and they want to say all these things. You got Gavin Newsom that's out there with his podcast. He's talking this week to Newt Gingrich. I mean, you want to have I'm like, Gavin, you've had all these conversations with all of these white Republican men. When are you going to have a conversation with someone black, someone Latino, to talk about what happened in the election? If you really want to have thoughtful conversations, then maybe you should talk to the people who actually are part of the Democratic Party and figure out how do we root cause what is going on. Because there is a lot going on in this party that we are not talking about, and we need to talk about 2024. I hate talking about it, but of course, the Catalyst data came out this week, and I did a whole analysis on it, hoping Myron would be on so that we could talk through this, because there's there's the conversation needs to be had about what it is that men particularly want. Oh, there he is. What
Yes,
men
I said I
particularly.
canceled it and I sent
Hey,
another one. Yay.
friend.
Yay,
Hey,
Myron.
friend. We finally found
Hi.
you.
I'm sorry.
Perfect
I'm sorry.
timing.
I'm sorry. I was such a boomer trying to get in.
Oh, it's all good. No, this is a
It's
perfect. That was like
We
perfect segue
boomers
to
are
the
gonna make it,
conversation.
Myron.
That was the
okay.
perfect conversation because I need this is why I wanted to have this conversation because of this data, and I want to understand why men feel the way they do. And it's not white men. We are they want to
Yeah.
center the conversation around white men, but the
Hmm.
conversation needs to be broader than white men.
Exactly.
There's a reason why
Yeah.
Latino men didn't vote. We know black men voted. at 85% or 79% for Kamala, the second highest other than Black women. But there was
Yeah.
a drop of 6%. A lot of Black folks stayed home. A lot of Latinos, Asians stayed home. These are the people that I want to understand why they didn't show up or why they chose not to vote for Kamala. And I asked Phil last night. I had a conversation with him, and it was very interesting. And some of this commentary bothers me, and I'm sure you've heard it too, Myron, because you had wrote threads, tons of threads about the barbershop and what they were talking
Yes.
about in
Yes.
the barbershop, right? And so I
Yes.
asked them outright. I was like, Phil, we're having this conversation online, and I just want to talk to you from a perspective. Why do you think that men didn't vote for Kamala? And he said, and it bothered me so much, but I had to accept it because you have to listen to what people say. And he said a lot of people that he had talked to and online thought that Kamala was inauthentic. And I was like, what? I was like, they're like, yeah, no, they thought that she was fake. And it hit me in a hard way because to
Yeah.
me, she's not fake. You know what I mean? She's not fake in any kind of way, but perception and reality are two different
Yeah.
things. And so people were perceiving her that she was not an authentic person. And so I don't know if you heard similar things to that, Myron, but it kind of shocked me when he said it.
So I didn't hear the fake thing, but in my conversations, not just in the barbershops, but in the black men in my family, right? The black men in my family, some of whom, well, most of whom are very religious, and some of whom pastor churches. And as you know, most black churches, most members in black churches are black women. But even knowing that our conversations leading up to the election, it was very hard to get the black men because I have these different family group chats, and the one that's black men, it was very hard to get them on board with Kamala. And it was a little bit of what you're saying, Steph, about this in not authentic,
Inauthentic.
yeah, inauthentic, but a lot of it was. I think I saw you say this on one of your threads, Steph. It was just the machismo of Trump.
Yeah.
It was just the it was just that American patriarchy. And like you said, it's not white, Latino, or black. It's just men, period. And not wanting to be led by a woman. Like it came down to that. And I'm telling you, in my experience in the black church, I have a lot of preachers and pastors in my family, and I've been in that world for most of my adult life. The pastors weren't having it.
And
It-
Myron, I can attest to that because, like you, I grew up in the rural South in a very religious community. My father is a pastor, and
there
then
you
my
go.
brother. So I, I'm 100% with you, and I recognize the patriarchy that is in black churches and the misogyny. And the other thing is that
Mhm.
MAGA doesn't have a market on conservatism because black
Yes, that's
people are
exactly right.
very conservative, especially
Yes,
when it around certain things,
yes,
especially around sexual orientation, those kinds of things. They can be very, very conservative, and
yeah,
I feel like that some of them maybe took offense because she openly supported, people of other genders and
yes. That
and
was a
and.
big issue,
Mm-hmm.
a big issue. But I want to add one other piece. I am friends with an attorney who worked under Kamala in the Attorney General's office in California. So
Mm-hmm.
he was on her staff, and from the moment she got into the job, and I asked him about it because I'd already known about her in California. I asked him about her when he first started working for her, and he said, "Well, she's a go-getter." And I asked her about her a little while after he'd been working for a year or so, and he said everything she's doing is to run for president. And this is way back when she was AG. And he was saying it almost critically that she was too aggressive and too much of a go-getter. And I talked to him just the other day. He and I went for a walk together. I said, "What do you think about this whole thing and everything?" He said, "Now he's white. He's a white male. Worked for her, loves her, lifelong Democrat, voted for Biden, voted for her, voted for Obama, all the way back. He said that Biden should have dropped out 1 year into his presidency, and Kamala should have been the person, and then they should have had a primary. This is someone who worked for her and says he loves her, but he didn't feel, and this is that patriarchy as well. He didn't feel that she should have been, in his words, appointed. He thinks that she didn't really earn it after all she went through. And so, if you, on the one hand, you have black men, and my wife is Latina, you know, Tiff, and and a couple of men in her family, the machismo came up,
Yep.
and the black men in my family, it was machismo. And like you said, the my brother is a pastor. Both my grandfathers, my cousins, my uncles. It was the conservative side of the black church where no gender differences. I mean, no gender accommodations, nothing like that. And they didn't like her for that. And now the white men say that she was a little too aggressive, and it was unfair that she was elevated, almost like she got an affirmative action up to that spot.
The,
She
that,
was doomed. She was doomed with men. I mean, look at all these men
yeah, she
talking.
was. And Phil said
And
the same
President
thing,
Biden
Myron.
knew that. He said that.
He
Right.
did.
He
He
did
did
say
say
that.
that. Race.
And I think Myron, to your point, Phil also said that too. He said the fact that a lot of people thought that it was it was crazy. Conspiracy theory land is wild. That Biden dropped out purposely for her to be able to be able to get that spot. Like you said, not earned it, and
Wow.
that there since there was no process for people to pick her over someone else, it was kind of like he, like I said, appointed her to be in that
Yes.
role. And
Yes.
people felt, and there were men who felt some kind of way about that, that she was given the role,
Yes.
but she
Yes.
didn't necessarily earn that role. And it's
Yes.
again, if you listen to people, I say we listen, we don't judge, right? And sometimes we have to do that.
Yes.
That when you start to listen to the underlying reasons why people were upset or didn't, and there were people that, like you said, people that voted for Kamala that
Yes.
still had these underlying
Yes.
reasons. It's not just the
Yes.
people
Biases.
that
Yes.
didn't vote for
That's
Kamala.
exactly it. And I think they
There
get missed. They're getting missed.
yeah, there's people that did vote for Kamala that actually had issues with Kamala. They just knew that Trump, I say
Yes.
he, but Trump was the worst option. And then the other thing that Phil
Yes.
says, and to that point, is the whole lesser of two evils conversation, which we went into that last night because
Yeah.
I'm like,
I hate that.
how do you square Kamala and Trump as being in even
Yes.
the same like realm of
Yes.
evilness or even buckets. Like these two are not, he's like, I get it. I understand what you're saying. But this is how people were feeling and what they were expressing on YouTube, online, when talking to people. These are the things that they were saying. And they don't necessarily say it to women because they know that they will be judged,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
know that we will say they're sexist, they're misogynistic, they don't want to hear
Right.
that toxic masculinity, all this shit that they don't
Yeah.
like. Um,
Yeah. And you know what? You know what,
but
Tiff? You know what gets me? There are a lot of people right now. You guys were talking about it earlier. The young white men who are saying that the older Democrats should retire and step down, and they're targeting. Well, a lot of them target Red Clyburn. Let's be honest. They
yeah,
want him. They want him out. And I had a discussion on TikTok about that, and many are saying, and these aren't just white men; these are just other Democratic voters saying, well, he should mentor, and older Democrats should mentor and get someone ready to succeed them. Now, if you hold that thought, even though someone has to be elected, right? You can't just put someone in office when it's a representative position. But the presidency literally has a vice president. The president mentored the person. He did step down. She was ready to go, and people still had a problem with it.
yeah. There's no
Exactly.
winning. There's no winning.
There's no
That's and that's
winning.
the thing.
Because they're
You're
not,
damned if you do, damn if you don't.
because
Yes.
they're not admitting the truth, their
Right.
biases,
Yes.
and the sexism, those kinds of
Yes.
things, and then too, with some of the young white men feeling left out or whatever. I feel like That's them. In my conversations that I've been having, my take is that I heard this one guy on, his name escapes me, on Deadline White House, and he an author, and maybe it'll come to me
Scott
later.
Galloway.
But he was yes, that's who it was, and he was talking about young white men being left out, and mothers being the one to see this, and them not being where their dads and people were at that point in their life. And again, I feel like they're missing the elephant in the room. They're not, because but he knows that they were where they were because marginalized people and black people they weren't on a level playing field with them.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
you know that the reason your son is having more difficulty is because that field has been leveled now. and
Yes.
and you don't want to, your son to have to deal with that. Like, come on, talk about
Yeah.
that. You want to say, yes, I know we've leveled it, but now we want them centered again and put
Yeah.
ahead. Like, make it
Yeah.
make sense to me. It doesn't,
Yes.
because
Well,
he's
I feel
aware.
Yeah, well, I feel
Mhm.
like for so long, like the Democrats, this is just me, the way I just feel about this. The Democrats have left men alone because the men didn't want to be bothered. Like
Yeah.
politically, they didn't want to be bothered, right? We just kind of just let them be. Maybe that
I
wasn't a
think you're
great
right.
thing, but men were not necessarily participating in the process. They wanted to be left alone. They literally told us, "Leave us alone. We don't
Yeah.
care about this." So we kind of just let them be. There was that we had males that had ran for president. Obviously, we
Yeah.
had we had Obama for 2 terms. I mean, people liked Obama, but oh, I get it. Obama was young. He had swag. He,
Yeah.
b- black men, Latino men, all men kind of
Right.
related to Obama. Even at some point, even after he got elected, maybe the white
Yeah.
men kind of turned on him. But and even black men too. Let's be clear, because
Yeah.
they turned on
Yeah.
him. They turned on him
He couldn't
too.
Yeah.
do
They
enough
did.
for anybody
He
either.
Yeah.
couldn't
They
do
did.
enough for anybody. They were not
Yep.
happy with him. He was
Yep.
he was not giving them what they want. But initially, they did like him. They helped him to be reelected, and they
Yeah.
still were asking for more. Then we had Hillary come along, and they didn't like her. They felt like the
Right.
establishment, gave her this spot. Kind of same
Uh
concept.
huh.
The whole Bernie pushing this. Oh, the establishment gave
Hmm.
her this. They kind of pushed her
Yeah.
into this role, and they didn't give me a fair chance. And he's still complaining about this 8 years later. He's or 9 years later, he's still complaining that they rigged the election for him.
Right.
But it kind of perpetuates this whole concept that
Yeah.
Hillary herself didn't earn that spot because the
Yes.
establishment gave her the upper hand to be able, mind you, Hillary whooped him in
Right.
in the states. I
Right.
mean, she
Wasn't
whooped him.
close.
Hmm.
It
Wasn't
wasn't
close.
close, but
Yeah.
that was the narrative they put out. Then we have Joe Biden, and Joe Biden didn't get. Joe Biden got smoked for other things, for past things
Yep.
he said. That
Yep.
they want to go back to the crime bill, or
Yep.
segregation. I mean, these were things that's what they were going at Joe Biden about.
Yep.
But white people really weren't going at Joe Biden hard. It was
No.
mostly black folks going at it, or
Yep.
and Latino folks too. They were using, he was part of the Obama deportation.
Yes.
There
Yes.
was a lot of narratives that were coming out in 2020, but people knew that we were in a pandemic. They voted for him, and we can see
Yeah.
through the data how they voted.
Yeah.
And he got a fair shake. He got a lot of turnout, and then we get to a point now where he ran thinking that he could win back that same coalition, but
Yes.
the coalition has been tainted, and so much misinformation has been put out there that the coalition doesn't look like what the coalition used to look like. And
Right.
we know
Right.
that now. So the question
That,
is,
yeah,
how do
that
we
was a
bring that back?
moment in time, because I mean,
Yeah, it was a
we were in
moment
the
in
middle of
time.
a
It's for
pandemic.
sure.
We had
Yeah.
like the most unpresidential president,
Yes.
in
Yes.
place. So people were like, we need some normalcy back. We need something that, we're used to, some norms brought back here. So I think
Yeah.
that helped him. But I feel like, with the first term of Trump, that people, and then he never really bowed out of politics, that they have also
Right.
gotten a whole generation of people to think differently about
Yeah.
politics, and it's not always rational thinking. It's like that.
That's a great point you make, because when you said he wasn't out of politics, essentially for Trump supporters and those black and Latino men that just like him, he's been their president for 12 years.
Exactly.
Right.
He's been
Exactly.
their guy. Yes. And so the contrast with Biden, Tiffany, to your point, was the people in my circle, like you said, the black men were going after him for stuff from the 90s, from the 70s, just going after him. And that the fact that he wasn't as tough as Donald Trump, right?
Right.
They didn't
That
like
is a
him because of that.
yes. And yes, and
Yes.
people get mad at me for saying this, but it's
Yes.
true. They don't see Biden. And I wrote, and I was interviewed by the editorial board. I don't know if you guys know that account. So we did an interview together, and I had made that thread that I talked about Biden, and it was about Kamala, but it was also about Biden and how by the time we got to, I don't know, last year this time, that people didn't see Biden as, like you said, that macho man, or
Right.
he's a grandpa. I mean,
Yes, his grandpa. He was
that's how
soft. He
people,
was
he's
soft.
soft. And
That's
the
what they were
thing
saying.
about it, thing about Myron is that in 2022, we had built a whole persona about Biden. He was
Yes.
dark Brandon.
Yes.
That was Biden being strong. That was about Biden being
Yes.
strong. That was about Biden being tough, right? And
Yes.
from and that worked.
It
I will
worked.
still, it worked because it gave him, and he was spicy. Let's be real, he was
He
spicy.
was.
He would get in
Yep.
front of those cameras, and
And it was us taking a
It
narrative
worked.
back because
Yeah.
we built that narrative. Exactly.
Yeah.
We built that narrative about Biden, but then at some point that tapered off, and then we get to 2023, and we don't have a narrative to
Right.
sell people about Biden. He can't pass legislation. He's
Right.
not a tough guy. He's now we're
Right.
battling Trump and his cases. Trump is
Right.
dominating everything.
and
Everything.
And
we have
how
a
do we
war going on.
and then
Yes.
later on in the year we get a war, and we are also having a war of misinformation that is
Yes.
penetrating all these different communities with
Yes.
all kinds of information that is false, and
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
really believe the things that they're hearing. They believe the border was open. They saw people being shipped to New York, to Chicago, all these
Yes.
places. Republicans play the game, and we don't fight back, it
Yes.
seems. And then we are stuck where we are now, trying to figure out and pick up the pieces and figure out how do we fix it?
Yes.
Well,
Yes. You're right. And
why?
that's exactly why he didn't get back on the debate stage with Kamala. Right, because she wiped the floor
Exactly.
with him, and
She
she
sure did.
showed he was not tough. She called him a puppet to his face, like Hillary did, to his face, and she just wiped the floor, and they never got back on stage with her because she broke that image that he was Mr. Tough Guy.
Yep,
Hmm.
you're right about that. That is such a good point. And I said that yesterday in my interview too. That she definitely, the narrative even after that debate, because I mean she whooped him, right? I mean there was
Mhm.
no doubt about it. When he came out and her little self, and she went up to him and gave him the handshake, and then she was the way she was just combating the things that he was saying. Even after that debate, people were saying negative things about her. Like
Yes,
they couldn't acknowledge that she did
That
a
she
good
whipped
job.
him.
So
yeah, I think,
they made up
yeah,
narratives about her
yes.
at that debate. You know what I mean? Like, so
And
it's
and you know, a lot of that is just the patriarchy that American men, I'm an American man, we are socialized to, we should be the loudest, we should have the most to say, we're most important, and women should not lead men. Like, we're socialized like that. They should not be in charge. And that reminds me of when, after the results came out, that little twerp Nick Fuentes is on video saying not that Kamala lost, he was saying this is great. America will never have a woman president. It wasn't even about her. It was, but it was. It was just men. Just and too many men in this country do not want a woman leading this country.
Yeah, and it's funny, like in art and those types of things in movies, they love to champion strong women,
Yes,
doing things
yes.
or whatever, but in real life, they
No, they don't
can't
want it.
take it. They
No, they're
can't take
uncomfortable
it.
with it. They're uncomfortable with it. When I asked my brother, who's a pastor, and 80% of his constituents are women, his church members. And I just said flat out, so are you saying he voted for Kamala, but he was not on Kamala's train, just not at all. He just said, God does not ordain a woman being in charge of this country. A man needs to be in charge of this country. And if it was Biden, fine, but he's too old and, all this kind of stuff, they should have put a man in. And it's just that simple. There was nothing she could say or do. It didn't even matter. Now he voted for her, but he didn't push her to anybody. He didn't do any work for it. There's nothing at all. And that's a huge loss. Like you said, Tiffany, how they just leave black men alone. And you leave black men to their own devices, you can see Republicans have been peeling away, right? Since Obama, they've been peeling away black men, and the Democrats
Because
haven't
they're,
responded.
And
yeah,
like you said,
because
I
they're
don't
down
even,
with the misogyny.
and I
Yes,
don't even think it's about like it's not. It wasn't even like you said. They didn't like Trump. Like my husband can't
right.
stand Trump. He can't stand Trump. He's like he can't even speak. Like yesterday we were having a
Yes, they
He's
know
like
that.
he can't even have like coherent sentences. He doesn't even make any sense. But that wasn't the issue. The issue wasn't Trump. It was
Right.
Kamala. Like they didn't
That's it.
feel they didn't like Trump, but if there were people that just didn't show up, they just were like, you know what, I'm not gonna vote. I don't like any of
Yeah.
these people. And I think that was part of the issue with the young people. And I think there's a conversation to be had about young people. Who are
Yes.
they being influenced by, right? Who are
Yes.
they who are they listening to that is making them, and it's not just white men. Like David Hogg wants to
Right.
focus on white men, but the black youth,
Yep.
1829, ten
Yep.
percent drop nationally
10% drop.
in
Yep.
in how they voted. It was what did they blame Kamala for COVID? Did they blame, she was part of the administration? Like there's a
Yep.
conversation that needs to be had about why these young men feel the way they do. And I don't care, like the way I look at it is for some white men, they're gonna follow the way their fathers vote, right? They're gonna follow the way
Yeah.
that their family has voted. They're Republicans. Like
Yeah.
David Hawkins' family is Republican. He's supposedly a Democrat, right? So some of these kids have evolved from
Right.
where their parents are, but they
Yeah.
still, like you said, still have some of that in them because they've heard it for so long. And then you get the ones that want to be revolutionaries and change the whole party
Yes. Yes.
because, that they think that they can save the Democratic Party, which we all know that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And it's
speaking
frustrating.
of that black man thing, so I'm in Sacramento, and I travel in black circles in this city. There were no get out the vote things at all.
Wow.
No get out the vote. No get out the vote. You remember when Obama was running? The the black and Latino communities went crazy, right? Get out the vote, souls to the poll, all that. With Kamala, not here in Sacramento, and not in my hometown, Oakland. A little bit, but not a lot. There was just
So
not that
interesting.
same momentum on the ground.
That's
Yeah,
so
that
sad.
yeah, and that's interesting. That's an interesting point, Myron, because now that I think about it, like, of course, we had our Senate race here, which was Angela Also Brooks. She was running against Larry Hogan. We did have robust get out the vote initiatives. But now that I think back to it, like one of the last ones we did, it was in a union hall, and as I'm thinking back to it, who was there? Like who was in that room getting ready to go out? It was black women, it was young white women, gay men, but there was really no straight men there. I
You don't
mean,
see them.
that were,
Yeah, I believe that.
and and the question was why? Mark, who's my friend, he was one of the only ones there. He was one of the only black men that were there that were, obviously it's just so
Right? I mean,
frustrating to me because
you saw more white gay men pushing Republicans than you did pushing Democrats. Like that is how twisted is that? Like
right. Yeah,
you're
one
right.
of
So
the
we've lost so many men. That's the point.
Yeah, we did lose men, and the question is, how do we move
How do we
forward?
get
And
them back?
people,
Yeah,
and I just don't feel like people want to and we may never get to the root cause of it, but people are frustrated and they don't want to have the conversation. I get it. You don't want to have the conversation because it's a hard conversation to have,
it
right?
is.
Why for so long we've said the conversation is always The 47%, the 47%. They didn't show up.
Right.
They did Hillary wrong. They did do her wrong in
We
20
get
in
it. Yeah.
2016. But they actually turned that around in 2020, and they, I guess we demonized them so much at that point that they
Right.
were like, we bullied them into, you better vote for somebody or you're gonna, or we're not gonna talk to you anymore. But a white woman actually showed up in the same exact numbers for Kamala that they did in
Yeah.
2020. The problem is that still 52% of them voted for Trump,
For
right?
either
That
side.
we're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
going to move away from that. But they
Yeah.
consistently, the 48%, I call them by their percentages. 48% actually showed up, and so we
Yeah.
can't be just like the 90 was 90, we say 92, but
No,
90% of black women
yeah.
showed up and they were consistent in showing up.
Consistent.
Why
Yeah.
was
It's
Latinas did they did not show up? Is it that patriarchy that
yeah.
kept them away? Like, what was it that, because a lot of times Latino women do follow what the Latino men in their household do.
For
Young
sure.
Latinas, that doesn't make sense to me. So I would like for there to be some kind of dissection into that. The same with
Mhm.
Asian, like AAPI community. Why didn't they show up? But I feel like if we don't have the real conversation, then we're
Yeah.
never gonna get to the right place. And a
Yes.
lot of people don't want to have this conversation,
They don't
but
want to
we
It's
have
a
the
need to
hard
have
conversation.
it.
it's a
Yes.
hard conversation to have because we
Hmm.
have to move past this point and we just can't, because we're going to keep coming, going in circles and coming back to this place over
Yes.
and
Yes.
over again. And I do think that we're at a place where, young people in general, I think feel like they have been left out, like young women and
Hmm.
stuff too,
Hmm.
but young men. And I do feel like I understand that they are not feeling like attention is being paid to them. And so maybe some conversations need to be had around that. But I do think that there are programs that are being put in place, like democratic programs and things, acknowledging things that would be helpful and beneficial to them. I
Yeah.
don't know how, we form these kind of messages to bring them into the party because I feel like the ones who are there are not setting a good example. Like,
Yeah.
they're focusing on ageism and other things. So how
Right.
do you have a conversation with folks like a David Hogg and these young people who, they are involved, but their priorities are a little different and their focus. How do
Yeah.
we deal
Yeah.
with that?
Well, I think the problem for me is the ageism conversation is so misguided. It is so
Yeah.
misguided because it is just an excuse to cover up certain things. There are effective older people in
Right.
Congress.
Right.
I, I get the fear, like we actually talked through the fear of what happened last week, which was Jerry Connolly dying, right? Someone who has cancer, obviously, and is in the house. Now, should there be some conversation about how we handle that? Like if you have cancer, like a Raul Garvaldo who had cancer for a whole year and is still in
Yeah.
what, like, you should have given up your seat a year ago when you were
Right.
diagnosed with cancer and knew that it was terminal. Like, these are
Right.
conversations that we can have.
Right.
But to say, oh, well, Steny Hoyer needs to go or Jim Clyburn needs to
Right.
go because they're old is doing a disservice
It is.
to the lifetime service that they have provided to their
Yeah.
constituents, because you want to kick them out because they're old. That's
Right.
not
Right.
fair. That's not how this should work. Steny
That.
Hoyer is I say
Right.
this every time. He is my congressman. He is going to be 85 or 86 this year. He is effective. That man has more
Right.
energy than I do. Every day he
Yeah.
is out doing the work. And there is someone who decided they want to run against him. I think last time I said, if somebody wants to run against him,
Have at it.
I will gladly
Mhm.
go. I will
Mhm.
destroy you, but go at it, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, and this guy,
And you can't miss the fact that voters 50 and up are the most reliable voters.
right? And
See,
and
see,
the
that's
way
the
that
offense
Congress,
I take with it because it's like
Right.
that's where I fall. Like you're not gonna ignore me and act like
Right.
I have no value to bring.
right?
Exactly.
Exactly. And
Exactly.
the whole idea of the gerontocracy. I wrote that Substack about the gerontocracy in Congress. We have made progress. We have made progress on having young people, women of color, even some women or men of color, right? We have made progress in these areas, and that is also what is bothering them, right? Because they don't like that
Yes.
there's so many women now in Congress. There's, I think the article that I posted from MSNBC or NBC News, there's 151 women
Wow.
who are now in Congress. 10
Wow.
years ago, it was less than 100. So we have made progress in that area. We have mayors who are women. We have yet to have a black woman governor. Maybe that'll change
Yeah.
in 2026. We don't know. But we have yet to. So we still have a lot of progress to make. And unfortunately, it seems like even with Dean Phillips yesterday, who actually admitted the
He
truth.
did. He
He
did.
admitted it, and I was like, you know what? I would rather people just be honest with what they want than pissing my damn face, because I feel like a lot of
Right.
times that's what they're doing. They're just pissing in my face and trying to tell me it's not that. Like, you are doing this. You're saying it, but you're not saying it. Just freaking say it. And he said it. He said, but I
He
was funny
did.
that he said that, these people that basically white men, he used three categories. He said men, working class, and I forget the other one that he said. I don't know, I forget. Oh,
Inclusion, something about
yeah, it
Inclusion.
was it
inclusion.
Yeah.
was it was working class men and another character. My iPad is dead, so I can't see it. But he basically was saying that this is the reason why we lose is because we're not including these people into the party. And if we want to have diversity and inclusion, then we need to include everyone. And
Right. He did say that. He
I'm
made it
like,
plain.
oh, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Why are y'all Bernie in this whole identity politics thing? We went on that Andrew Schultz podcast and he was
A
complaining
mess.
about identity politics. The thing is, Bernie does identity politics, and I don't
Right.
think
He is
people
identity.
recognize it.
Right.
Working class is an
An
identity.
identity. Right.
Being a man, a woman, are identities. We do identity politics every day. There's
Yeah.
no escaping it. But he wants to not. He wants to talk. He uses working class as a way to talk about white men. We all know this. We've all seen it. It's been
Right.
8 long
Right. We
years of him
know.
doing this, and we get to the point of it. But don't tell me that it's not. You want to be included. Just say you want to be
Just say you want
included.
to be included. Yes.
You can be
Yeah.
included. Do I think
Yeah.
that? And I wrote about that also, in my Substack about the data. You can be included. We will listen to you. We will hear what you have to say, but
Yeah.
you will not be the focal point, aka the center of
Yes.
attention as we try to move forward in
Right.
2028. You cannot, we don't, we know the bar. The bar for white men is
It,
40%. We're
right.
at 36%. Can we get back that 4%? Sure. We get a male candidate. I'm pretty sure
Right. You'll get it
at
back.
least half of that will come
Yeah.
back, right?
Yes.
We then have to figure out, okay, is there programs that you would like us to address? Do you need more mental health? Because a lot of the conversation is
Yeah.
around male loneliness. So to me, that says that we're going to target men, then we should have more programs for them to have better social behavior.
and
Yep.
and
And a
that's
lot of
it.
that, I mean, and that comes back to their behavior with women, right? Maybe you need more of that. The idea that it's only the economy, Bernie, 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 oh, the economy, the economy, the economy, and that's what drives people is
No.
delusional. The,
It's
the,
delusional.
the economy is not what drives people. They still have
Right.
trained thoughts and implicit biases in their damn head. How do you
Exactly.
get over that?
And solving that economic thing doesn't solve a lot of other issues, like
Right.
that is only part of it, and it's like that's the only part that he wants to kind of like focus on without addressing the others. And like you said,
Yes.
we need to like look at what are the things that young men need. That doesn't, it doesn't matter what color they are, black, white,
Right.
Latino, or whatever. What
Right.
do they need? Because I do believe that there are some things that they need, programs and things that, and like I said, a way to have a conversation with them. But also, let them know you're not the only ones that matter here. You
Right,
know?
right,
Okay, like somebody needs to
right,
tell them that, and I feel
right.
like they stay in this bubble where they feel like if they're not being centered,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
the
yeah.
conversation's not worth having.
Right. I said that in a video this past week that we keep hearing it's the message and the messengers, but white men and white people in general haven't voted majority Democrats since the civil rights legislation passed. And that tells me it's not the message or the messengers, it's the listeners. And there's something about how white people are raised and socialized that, particularly white men, but also white women, but particularly white men, where they don't want to listen to anybody else. They're their own best counsel. They have the answers. And no matter what you say, it's not getting through to them because democratic policies have benefited white men more than anybody
Hmm.
for the last 80 years. And so, like you said, Tiff, it's not the economy because democratic policies benefit white men. But somehow, no matter if that happens, when a Republican comes along and says, "I'll make you rich," they go, "Okay, great, you're a guy."
And the man is lying to you in your face. Like, do you? I do believe that at some point people just like liars because they
It's
like
like liars.
they like Bernie Sanders who just lies to them in their face and tells them what they want to hear. You know, Trump tells them what they want to hear, and then we're all kind of stuck in the middle. Like, okay, but Biden's like, yeah, I can't do the things that you want me to do, and they're like, what? You can't do these things, like, and everybody's trying to
Exactly.
push this, like, you need to be more populist. Populist, I don't agree with that. That is just more lies, more and
It's
more
just
lies,
lies. Yeah.
misguided, telling people what they want to hear. This is what people say they don't like about politics. That people just
Right.
tell them what they. You cannot square those two things
Can't
together.
square.
And
Right.
that's
Right.
what
His
turns a
his
lot of people off, and
right.
I think that's why a lot of people stayed home is because they get sick of that political stuff. It's become
Yeah.
so such a turnoff, to
Yes.
regular
Yes.
people, that like you said, populism is just telling people what they want to
What
hear.
they want to hear. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like what the Democrats actually do as far as policy and legislation is popular. Like it helps
It
the
is popular.
populace,
Yes. It's
and
very
like I feel
popular.
like we need to lean into it more and talk more about what we do. Okay.
Okay. I have to sign off. Yeah.
All right.
So
Well,
I have a
yes, we're
10.
going to be wrapping up here. Myron, I am so glad that you had a chance to join us today. I hope you are able to do it again. And
Anytime. Just
sorry.
invite me.
All
Yeah. I'm
right.
free on Fridays. Just let
Definitely.
me know.
We'll
Yeah. I
make
love
it
listening to
regular.
you too.
All
Yes.
right. Thank you.
Thank
Have
Bye,
a
you.
great
guys.
rest of
Talk
the
to you
Okay.
day.
later. All right,
Thanks,
bye.
audience.
Bye. All right, Tiff. I know you're going to have to be going to soon. It's been a great conversation today. I loved having Myron in there, and so yeah, you want to give some closing thoughts to folks about what's on your mind?
All right. Well, Dallas has a whole lot on her mind because somebody came to my door and she is not happy right now. I don't know who's out there, but she is very upset and she is losing her damn mind. But just really quickly, I would just say, you know, as we are moving forward, we need to start having conversations with people in real life, not just online, and find out, what they're looking for when we start talking about 2028. We have to get to 2026 first, obviously. That is to me, 2026 is a different kind of election than 2028, 2026. That is a state, local election that everybody's going to have to tailor their message in a different way. There's not really a national message. It is based on what is happening in your district at that time, in your state. That is what's going to get people to turn out. But I do find it very odd that we have a race that is in New York coming up in the next couple of weeks. And as I'm looking at that data, we have Cuomo, we have this guy, Zoran Mamdani, we have other people in that race. And the data that comes out of that race will give us an indication of kind of where we're going. What I saw yesterday is that women, people of color, Black folks, and young people are going for Cuomo. Knowing all the things that we know about Cuomo, they are in favor of him more. And whatever you think of whatever proclivities that he had and rumors and things that were found in those reports, people are going to be pragmatic in how they vote at the end of the day. And we're gonna see how that. I think that, yeah, that will be June. I think that race is June 24th. So we will have a show before then on the 13th. So we will see where we are before that race. But that is the race that I am focusing on now to see where people's heads are. And the Cuomo thing intrigues me because New Yorkers are going to do what they have to do. They have bad choices in that race, but they are going to pick between the harm. They're going to always choose harm reduction. They did with Eric Adams, didn't work out too well. But you have this other guy who's a socialist, a democratic socialist, who's telling people he's going to, freeze their rents. And are people going to fall for it this time? I don't know. I don't think they will. I think they're going to choose harm reduction. They know Cuomo. I don't he's not even he's not the candidate that I would want for the city that I grew up in. But people know his work and they're going to pick the person that they know. I say, as they say, you're going to pick the devil you know over the devil you don't know. And
Absolutely.
so that is one thing to pay attention to. So that's what I'm paying attention to over the next 2 weeks, as well as whatever else is going to happen, because every day is an adventure around here.
Absolutely. Well, I think that is smart, and we will be definitely looking forward to your commentary on these and your observations from these races and the stats. I am going to be continuing to look at Elon, even though he's kind of coming out of the national spotlight. He is very much in my life because he's very much in my state. So I will be really following him and the harm that he is doing here in our state, and reporting on that, and reminding people that just because he's gone from there, like the damage he's done is stuck. It's going to be cemented by void, and people need to also start, thinking long term, not just the party, but we as citizens, like think long term in our work to secure our communities, to make them better, and to be willing to, to find a work that we can do, no matter how small. But it's going to take all of us. Like, none of us can, sit back and just like watch. I mean, we can, but it would be to our detriment. Because, yes, I'm talking about Boxtown, Claudia, because, our rights and freedoms are being taken away every day. Every single day they're doing something that's bringing harm to us, and people just have to recognize that. And we are the only, I mean, like, we're counting on the judiciary to, stop some of this stuff, but the real stop is us. So I hope that in all this harm that's coming to us, people, find their superpowers
Let's
to
hope.
push back. Okay.
Let's
So,
hope. Lord knows. Yeah. All
all
right.
right.
Well, thanks, Miss D. Have a good 2 weeks, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Looking forward to it.
All
Thanks
right.
again. Have a great weekend.
All right. Bye bye, guys.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Let me see how to get us out of here.